A flag on fire isn't a symbol of free speech. It's a Molotov cocktail wrapped in red, white, and blue. And as of August 25th, 2025, the President of the United States has said, not anymore. With a stroke of a pen, Donald Trump signed an executive order that directs federal agencies to prosecute anyone who burns the American flag when it incites violence, threatens others, or breaks existing law.
Their facts collapse, their stories bend, but this AI cuts straight to the end. Welcome to the Mark Boy Show.
Now, you might be thinking, wait, didn't the Supreme Court already rule on this back in the 80s? Yes, they did. Texas versus Johnson in 1989 and United States versus Eichmann in 1990, two famous cases where the court said burning a flag in isolation could be symbolic speech. But let's get something straight right out of the gate. Those rulings protected a guy burning one flag in a relatively contained protest. What they did not say is that anyone, anywhere, anytime has a constitutional right to commit arson in public under the banner of expression. This executive order doesn't overturn the court. It builds on the parts of those rulings that explicitly left the door open: incitement, threats, fighting words, arson, and hate crimes. In fact, the order directly references the Johnson case to say, look, when burning a flag is used as a weapon, it's not speech, it's a crime. And let me be blunt, that's the common sense position the majority of Americans already hold. Poll after poll shows most people think flag burning is flat out unacceptable. And yet for decades, we've been told by academics and activist lawyers that it's some kind of sacred ritual of democracy. Sorry, but no, burning your own house down doesn't make you a model homeowner. So let's rewind. Gregory Lee Johnson, a revolutionary communist, burns a flag outside the 1984 Republican National Convention. He gets arrested, convicted, and sentenced. But the Supreme Court says, no, sorry, you can't punish him just because people are offended. That was the Texas versus Johnson case. The decision was 5-4, razor thin, and controversial as hell. Justice Brennan wrote the majority, but Justice Stevens dissented. Stevens said something powerful. He argued that the flag is not just another symbol. It represents the nation itself, and burning it is a direct attack on the value of that symbol. That logic never died. It's been simmering ever since. Fast forward a year, Congress passes the Flag Protection Act of 1989 to try to ban flag burning. The Supreme Court strikes that down too in Eichmann. Again, they say the government can't ban it simply because it's offensive. But here's the key. The court never said flag burning is protected in every context. They only said it was protected when it was a political expression, not tied to violence or incitement. The court even admitted that if flag burning were used to intimidate or provoke immediate violence, it could be punished. That's the loophole. That's the gap the executive order drives a truck through. And it's not unprecedented. Look at Virginia versus Black in 2003. That's the case about cross burning. The court upheld laws banning cross burning when it's done to intimidate someone, because a burning cross isn't just speech, it's a threat, a weapon of psychological terror. The same reasoning applies here. If you're burning the flag at a veterans parade while screaming anti-American slurs, you're not engaging in debate, you're looking for a fight. Now let's talk about why this matters today, not just in some dusty law school seminar. In 1989, Johnson's flag fire was an isolated incident. Offensive? Sure. But it didn't trigger a riot. Today, though, flag burning is a regular feature of violent protests. Los Angeles, June 2025. Protesters burn American flags in the street while rioting against ICE. The flames aren't just symbolic. They're part of the chaos, the vandalism, the assault on police. Seattle, same month. Agitators rip a flag down from a federal building and torch it in the middle of the crowd. Chicago, 2024. Anti-Israel and anti-America protesters burn flags outside the Democratic National Convention while clashing with cops. Washington, D.C., flags go up in flames during violent protests at foreign embassies. These aren't statements, they're accelerants. They make volatile situations more dangerous, and they are designed to provoke confrontation. A burning flag isn't a conversation starter, it's a fight starter. And let's not forget the practical point. Flags today are usually made of nylon or polyester. Light one up, and it doesn't just smolder like cotton. It melts, drips fire, spreads fast. Try burning a nylon flag at a protest, and you've created a hazard that can torch property or injure people in seconds. That's not speech, that's arson. So when the president says, enough, he's not banning political expression. He's saying, if you're going to set a fire in the middle of a crowd to send your message, expect to face the law. Critics scream that the order is unconstitutional, authoritarian, or censorship. That's all noise. Let's break it down in plain English. First, the order explicitly acknowledges the Supreme Court cases. It says, yes, Johnson and Eichmann protected flag burning in some contexts. But, and here's the big but, the court never said burning a flag to incite violence or intimidate others is protected. That's the wedge. Second, it tells the Attorney General and the DOJ to prioritize prosecutions where flag burning overlaps with existing crimes. Not new crimes, existing ones. We're talking about arson, disorderly conduct, destruction of property, violent rioting, and yes, hate crimes. Third, it calls for collaboration with state and local governments. That means if a city has an open fire code or a state has laws against public arson, federal agents can hand over cases for prosecution. No more shrugging and saying, well, it's free speech. Fourth, immigration. If you're a non-citizen and you burn the American flag as part of violence or intimidation, the order directs Homeland Security to consider that in your visa or deportation status. You want to live in America but burn the American flag in contempt? That's not a tough call. You're gone. And fifth, it's careful. It doesn't claim to erase Supreme Court precedent. It says, to the fullest extent permissible under law. In other words, push the issue, prosecute the cases, and if someone wants to challenge it, let's litigate it. Maybe even give the current court a chance to revisit the issue in today's context. That's not authoritarian. That's using the tools of the justice system exactly as they were designed. Let's drill into the legal backbone. The First Amendment is strong, but it's never been absolute. You can't threaten to kill someone and claim free speech. You can't yell fire in a theater unless there's an actual fire. You can't distribute child pornography, commit fraud, or incite a riot under the banner of expression. Those are all long-standing exceptions. Flag burning in the wrong context slides neatly into two categories: fighting words and incitement. The fighting words doctrine from Chaplinsky versus New Hampshire says, speech that's so personally offensive it's likely to cause immediate violence is not protected. Burn a flag in front of a group of veterans and tell me that isn't essentially the same thing. That's not debate. That's an insult with a lit match attached. Then there's Brandenburg versus Ohio, the incitement standard. Speech that is intended and likely to cause imminent lawless action can be punished. Flag burning in the middle of a riot isn't just a metaphor, it's a call to arms. It emboldens the mob, it provokes opponents. It's a spark in a powder keg, literally and figuratively. Now layer in the modern concept of hate crimes. For decades, the left has pushed laws saying the motive behind a crime matters. If you punch someone while shouting a slur, it's not just assault, it's a hate crime with enhanced penalties. Fine. If that's the standard, then burning the American flag in order to intimidate Americans is a bias-motivated act too. It's hatred directed at a national identity. Why should that get a free pass? So legally, the order is solid. Fighting words, incitement, arson, hate crimes, these are all recognized exceptions. The critics are pretending the First Amendment is an absolute when it never has been. Now let's have a little fun because the hypocrisy here is rich. Critics say, this is censorship. Really? Where was that concern when universities were banning speakers because they might trigger students? Where was that absolutism when the left pushed to censor so-called hate speech online? They were all in favor of limiting speech then. But now that their pet act of symbolic anarchy is in the crosshairs, suddenly they rediscover Voltaire, please. Others say, this is authoritarian. Again, nonsense. Authoritarian is when the government bans ideas. This order doesn't ban anyone's ideas. You can say America is evil until you're blue in the face. What you can't do is start a fire in the middle of a protest that risks lives and property. That's not silencing speech, that's enforcing public safety. Then there's the line, flag burning hurts no one. Wrong. It hurts plenty. It inflames tensions, sparks riots, and disrespects the very people, veterans, soldiers, families, who sacrificed under that flag. And physically, it's dangerous. Burning polyester doesn't just vanish, it spreads molten fire. So don't insult our intelligence by saying it's harmless. And finally, the slippery slope argument. If you punish this, what's next? Punishing all offensive speech? Because again, this isn't about being offensive. This is about conduct that crosses into incitement and intimidation. There's a clear line. If you can't tell the difference between holding a sign that says "Down with America" and lighting a flag on fire in a riot, you shouldn't be lecturing anyone on constitutional law. At the end of the day, this executive order is about restoring respect for the law, for public safety, and for the flag itself. The flag isn't just fabric. It's the symbol of a nation that has endured wars, crises, and division, and still stands. It's the cloth that drapes the coffins of fallen soldiers. It's the banner that flew on Iwo Jima and on the moon. Burning it isn't just making a point. It's spitting in the face of the people who made your freedom possible. And look, this isn't about banning dissent. Protest is healthy. Dissent is patriotic. But dissent doesn't need a match. If your only way to communicate is to torch the flag, maybe your argument isn't as strong as you think. For too long, flag burners have hidden behind a misreading of the First Amendment. This order yanks away that shield. It says, no, you can't disguise arson, intimidation, and incitement as symbolic speech. Not anymore. And yes, there's a certain poetic justice here. The same folks who've spent decades pushing for hate speech laws, censorship of dangerous rhetoric, and punishment for offensive symbols are now being held to their own standard. They wanted laws to silence harmful expression? Fine. Welcome to the club. Burn the American flag to spread hate or incite violence, and you're going to jail. That's consistency. That's fair. So, here's where we stand. This executive order doesn't kill free speech. It strengthens it by drawing a hard line between speech and destruction. It doesn't muzzle dissenters. It muzzles the mob. It doesn't ban ideas. It bans arson as a form of argument. If you want to debate America's flaws, do it. Write, speak, march, organize. But if you light the American flag on fire in a way that endangers others or incites violence, don't expect the First Amendment to bail you out. Because free speech was never meant to be a suicide pact. It was never meant to protect destruction. It was meant to protect the marketplace of ideas. And last time I checked, lighting a flag on fire in the middle of a riot isn't an idea, it's a tantrum. So to the critics, I say this: stop pretending this is about liberty. It's about lawlessness. Stop pretending this is about democracy. It's about anarchy. And stop pretending this is about speech. It's about fire. The flag stands for a nation that defends freedom, but freedom requires responsibility. And if you can't handle that responsibility, if you think burning the symbol of this country is your God-given right, then don't be surprised when the law finally catches up with you, because the days of hiding arson behind the First Amendment are over.
Thank you for your attention.